Aye.
I call to order the November 3rd, 2014 regular meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to please silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Would you please stand for the pledge, and our senior member of the board will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Witt, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates.
Present.
Mrs. Copeland-Dansby.
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman. Mr. Coons.
Here.
Mr. Manera.
Here.
Mr. Nelms.
Here.
President Bolton.
Here. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special public meeting of October 20th, 2014.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Bates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Copeland-Dansby. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved as presented. Tonight's new business is a great, wonderful presentation of folks that have been busy, very busy within our district, and we welcome them. It's a presentation that will be about an organization that involves parents in helping students with not only college process and other programs offered by Leadership Scholars. Our guests tonight are Drs. Pat and Susie White. They'll be the presenters. As I understand it, we have both the president of the organization and the executive director with us. Are those the right titles? Am I using sort of the right titles? You answer to anything, because I know you've been in education many years, so it's the same way with me. Well, we're glad you're here, and you have some very positive, wonderful, and I think insightful news to share with us. I know you've been able to meet with some of the members of the board on occasion, so we'll let you get started, and I think it'd be best if we can have you do your presentation, and then if members can save their questions or comments for the end, I think that would be helpful.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Pat White, and I am the Executive Director of Leadership Scholars. And first of all, thank you for inviting us here. We're excited about the work we're doing and sharing it with all of you. I want to begin, and this is my daughter, Susie White. Yes, we are mother and daughter team. People say they call her Minnie many times when we're out together, so because we look so much alike and have the same passions. I want to begin with a little animal. This is an octopus. And about 25 years ago, when I was doing a lot of college counseling work, I had to try to decide what could I use that people could see as a visual to understand how does a student go to college and what does it take. And so sitting on an airplane coming back from California, I came up with the octopus. And here is the theory behind this that people tend to remember for many years later. A child goes to college, and we'll talk about the research, because the people who are around them give them the same message consistently. The teachers give them a message, parents give them the message, coaches give them the message, and eventually, if they get that message on all these different levels, that student who's in there cannot swim out. They get the message. And one of the things that we have to do when we're working with students in college and we're talking about accessing it, we have to be sure everyone that surrounds that child who can impact that child's life, the influencers in that child's life, are the people that have the right information. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is how we're trying to, and we're attempting to, give the right information to the students, the parents, and the teachers here in the district so that it's accurate information and they can make good decisions. So that's the first part. Leadership Scholars is based on research. It's from the latest research from across the nation on what it is that a student needs to have and parents need to have in order for their child to make good decisions for college. We have a group of people that are on our board, and we've included our board in the handout. And we want you to see that these are the people who believe with us that our job is to empower parents. We're not here to do it for them. We're here to empower the parents to be the people who influence their children in their lives. As I always said, I have never, ever, as much as I've cared about students I've worked with, none of them, I've never cared about them as much as their parents have. And so this is based on the premise that parents and caring adults in their life, and we qualify the word parent. It can be a grandparent, it can be an aunt, it can be a next door neighbor. It's the people who are around these children who will influence them in their futures.
Great.
Okay, the problem.
So because our mission is to help give students the opportunity to go to college, we know that a person's earning potential and their ability to actually support their family is dependent on the level of education that they get. And so, as you can see, we know that the more education someone gets, the higher their earning potential goes. We also know that in Cincinnati, in order to make at least $33,000, it's going to take 95% of those jobs will actually require some form of post-secondary education or job training. So we know that this is going to be really important for families moving forward. Unfortunately, right now, Cincinnati has 31% of the adult population have some form of college degree. If you look at other comparable cities, they're much higher, Lexington, Raleigh, and Seattle. We also know that with more education, it's going to be easier for these students and eventually adults to find employment and also to find benefits. Go ahead.
So the reason we are interested is that childhood poverty in Cincinnati is the second highest in the nation behind Detroit. So we need to do something here in Cincinnati to help our children, to make sure they can have good lives. 53% right now are living in poverty. Okay. Now, what we're going to go into next, now that we know the problem, is what do we do? What are the key predictors of college attendance, since the organization is based on that? The most important one is parental involvement. It is that parent saying to that child, I want you to go to college. And so we'll talk about our parental program in just a second. This is, and you'll see many times in our literature that we have indicated the names of the researchers who have done extensive research in the field. And so the first group is on the parental involvement. The second group is on institutional agents, the teachers, principals, counselors, coaches, those people that surround the child at the school level. And then the third thing that's very, very important is academic preparedness, that students actually understand what they need to do, and then we help them make the decisions to do the right things. So that would be the third part of it. What you find is when you're working with parents, and this is of all socioeconomic backgrounds, this is not specific to low-income parents. Very few have the knowledge and understand what it takes to be successful in high school. We know now, and in college, and we know now that we have markers. There are markers such as a student who takes, and that's why it's wonderful you're doing the AP courses now in the high schools, a student who takes an AP course and even gets a 1 on it is twice as likely to graduate from college. If a student takes 2 APs, we know that they get a 3 on those, they are 7 times more likely to graduate from college. And so since we know those markers, and if we can tell parents early on why their students need that curriculum, this will help them in getting to where they need to be. Okay. So what we're going to do is talk about the Parent Academy. I think we're going to jump on to that. Many years ago, I knew parents were important, and I'd always work with parents, but I didn't know where you go for a program that's already set up somewhere where we could find a program that was working. And so we went out looking for a program that was working. When we did that, I'll let Susie take over because in fairness, she found the program.
So, so when I was at Harvard, we conducted a national study looking at all different parent programs. By far, the one that was most effective, it was the best research-based program that we could find was actually called PK. So it's Parent Institute for Quality Education. And so, so after looking at that, we found a ton of research actually on student outcomes. And so we know that this program was effective at moving student achievement. And we looked at things like student high school graduation rates, college attendance rates, GPA, standardized test scores, taking a more rigorous curriculum. And we found that basically this was the most effective in terms of a K-12 program at moving student achievement. We also, while also in grad school, we were looking at, while studying with Dr. Pedro Noguera, he actually runs the Urban Metro Center at NYU. We worked together to look at the different ways that, and effective ways that programs are combining academic achievement and effective education practices with social and emotional learning. So we looked at different national models, and we basically co-developed a curriculum based on social and emotional learning and also on college readiness. And so to briefly discuss the main topics that we ended up focusing on. Oops. The topics that we put together, we've actually put into our parent academy, our student academy, and our teacher academy, with the understanding that if we could work with the students and we could work with the parents and teachers on reinforcing those topics with the students, that we would then surround that student with the right information and right strategies. Research has confirmed that each of these things were the most important things that we could be doing right now to impact student achievement. So as you'll notice, under each of the topics, we do have the researchers who have researched each of these topics. So to briefly go over them, we looked at, and we now teach to these 3 different groups of people: mindfulness, which improves focus and also helps with decision-making, emotion regulation, those sorts of things. We work with the students on grit and also with the parents and teachers. And one thing that we now know is that we can teach grit. And for a while, we weren't sure if we could teach grit. And now research is conclusive that we can. And so we know that students who have grit end up graduating at higher rates from, as you all know, from high school and from college. And so we use a lot of the research like Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck. We also teach positive outlook, Martin Seligman's work on optimism and resilience. We look at social intelligence, things like human connection, empathy, and a lot of that comes from Daniel Siegel. And the last thing that we look at is college knowledge. So, and we've already spoken about that. So here's that.
So we're going to get in now to the actual Parent Academy so you can see exactly what it is that we're doing. And what we do in the Parent Academy, remember, we mimic with the teacher program as well as with the student program. So they're all getting the same thing. We went to California to visit out there. That's where the program was initiated in San Diego. Our board was pleased with the program when we brought it back to them, and they decided to buy the program. What we decided to do, though, is we needed to go visit and have other people look at the program as well. So you will see that Mary Ronan went with us. And a lot of the people from the CBC and CRBC, and we went out in some foundations here in Cincinnati, and we went out and met with the superintendent to get her reaction and what went on out in St. Paul. It was a trip that we could do in one day. And so thank you, Mary, for going with us. So we went out, we visited that program. We also went back out to California and did a full week of visits with the California program so that we could learn how to do it. When you buy this program, you get a manual that is about this thick. And because it's been in existence for 25 years, because it's been delivered to over 500,000 families, every mistake they told us that you could make, they have made. And so what they said was, we get 25 years of experience plus 25 years of research on what works. And so that's why we purchased the program. The topics of the leadership the Leadership Parent Academy is, one is to create a home learning environment, and we're going to talk about how we get people to come because this is key. Getting students to do homework every night, getting parents to understand why their children need to read, even understanding topics such as attendance, why they need to come to school every day. It's a program that works individually with parents as well. So we coach parents on how to go to a parent-teacher conference. They have never seen this in their own family's lives. No one has ever attended a parent-teacher conference. So we actually role play in class. If the teachers want to, we teach them how to go on Power School. We take them now to a lab and we get them on so they know how to access their children's reports if they haven't been able to do that yet. And we work with each parent to understand standardized testing so that if their children are behind, they'll understand it and then they can go to the school and get the help they need to work with it. We also teach them that it's a homeschool partnership, and that they are a vital part of the process, and we need them in the schools. And we'll talk about some of the follow-up we do with them. We want them to take rigorous courses in high school. So you ask when you have first grade parents, how is that related? And it's that if you're not on target when you're first, second, and third grade, you don't have your children reading, you don't have them doing homework, we are going to get them off par, and we all know how important third grade reading is. And so we're trying to make sure they understand that it begins that early for them. We make sure they understand that college is a viable option. And we really spend a lot of time with our parents on financial aid, that they don't, they hear so much about how expensive it is. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that they understand this is viable for their children. And we also go into great detail with them on social emotional learning. They will tell us when we do our evaluation at the end that even their own emotional regulation has changed in their homes when they sit back and take time to make good decisions with their children. We didn't go into each of the individual lessons, but in your packet, you're going to see each week's lessons for the elementary and for the middle school. Okay? The last thing I'll talk about with the Parent Academy is everyone says, how does this happen? How do we get these parents involved? And it's an 8-week session that's conducted once a week that culminates in graduation, and you've all received your graduation invitations for our graduation on November the 16th. You're all cordially invited. Santa Ono is our graduation speaker over at UC. It begins with us calling every single parent and inviting them to come the first night. And that's an important step, and it's not a phone call, that's a 1-minute phone call, but it's like, I know how much you love your child, and I'm sure you would like to learn more about how you can be a great parent because you love your child so much. And it's very much about that. After they come to the first meeting, for the parents who come, the next night, the facilitator actually calls every parent that showed up and thanks them for coming. And they say, thank you for coming last night. That's real evidence how much you love your child. We are so glad to have you here. And so what's happening is there's a relationship between that facilitator and that parent. So it's a comfort zone. When they walk back in for the second week, that facilitator is waiting at the door. They're greeting them. They're eating dinner with them because we provide dinner for them. And then they go to the classroom, and again, they're talking individually to them. They will then follow that up with another phone call, thanking them for coming, and they're supposed to pick out something that they said in the class because it's 15 parents to one teacher. And so they're going to pick out something they said and say to them, you gave great information last night. Thank you for coming. We really needed you there. You're so important. And so what's happening is these relationships just keep getting tighter and tighter so that by the time they graduate on November 16th, they will be all crying. And the one thing we hope to do is turn all of these parents back over to the schools. That's the ultimate goal, so that they will be on, the school like ILT,
Yeah, ILC.
ILC, they'll be on those, and we will do that next week. Talk to the parents about ways they can become permanently engaged beyond their own child in a school. And so that will be the next part. And yes, we do provide free transportation, free childcare, and free dinner. And that's a bonding time also for those parents. So we're trying to remove all the barriers. And this, by the way, is all about how it was run in California and how it's run out in St. Paul.
Graduation.
There's graduation. They graduate in cap and gowns. Mr. Nelms participated in one of our graduations. You are. He's everywhere. He participated at Renew, and we ran an 8-week program out there. And so they will graduate in cap and gowns. For some of our parents, this is the first time they've ever graduated, and it's a big moment for them. And they also will receive their diplomas from Santa Ono, and they receive 2 nails. And the significance of the 2 nails are that 1 nail is for their diploma, and the 2nd nail is for their child's diploma when they graduate from college. So it's some tangible evidence of something they can point to. And inevitably, they will come up after graduation and say to us, I have 4 children. I need more nails, so that they can point to that for us. So how do we evaluate what we're doing?
So when we look at metrics and outcomes, we're actually working with the University of Cincinnati and Julie Morrison, who's a professor there, to evaluate each of the programs and parent outcomes. So for the Parent Academy, we focus on 3 things. We look at parent attitudes, parent knowledge, and parent behaviors. So for example, for parent attitudes, we track from the beginning to end whether or not their beliefs around whether or not they can send their children to college change, and we know that they do. When we're looking at changes in parent knowledge, we know that parents are learning more about what kind of classes their children need to get acceptance into college. We also know that they're learning more about financial aid and also class requirements for even high school graduation. Last thing that we think is really important is looking at parent behaviors. We want to know whether or not our program is changing what parents are doing. And all of our evidence says that all of the behaviors that we think are really important actually are changing. So things like whether or not they're encouraging their children to read, whether or not they've reviewed their children's standardized test scores, we know that that's moving, and whether or not they're checking with the school or the teacher or even online to check on the students' grades. So we know that we're moving things, and we actually make sure that every parent does take a post-test so that we can figure out whether or not we're doing an effective job. Next, we can briefly look at the schools that we're serving right now. As you can see, last year we were in Riverview East Academy. That was our first CPS school, and we served 55 parents. And when we were trying to figure out which schools we were going into this year, we were so grateful to have the support of Bill Miles, Mary Ronan, and Julie Sellers to help us select which schools we were going into. So this fall, we added 5 more CPS schools, and in the spring, we plan to add 2 more public schools right now.
And maybe more.
And maybe more.
Mr. Miles.
Great. So just wanted to also briefly mention, we do have the Student Academy where we work with students directly and teach them these same topics. And we also have the Teacher Academy where we're now working with teachers to help them figure out how they can reinforce these topics in their classrooms. And lastly, we have the high school program, and we're in the process of developing a high school parent program where parents and students would come together and they would learn about all of these same topics. So college readiness, college knowledge, and help them through the application process.
And that program is already in existence in St. Paul and in California. But since this is only our 2nd year, we only took on elementary and middle school for 2 years. And next year we'll go into the high school so that we can bring that program in as well. So who have we been working with in our process? We've been working with Cincinnati Public Schools. Great help from Mary on all of this. The Cincinnati Federation of Teachers, Julie Sellers, has been wonderful. We've been meeting with Leif Bryant so that we can work with him on moving our parents over to him so that they can be more involved in the schools. The Strive Partnership, Greg Glansman, we meet with regularly. Our organization was originally only in Catholic schools, and so that's why, and we began with the SICE schools, so there's where you see that. Miami University is now working with us on some scholarships for the students who go through the high school program as well, and we just brought 50 parents and 50 students on a college visit. Anything we do parents and students together. And do you want to tell them what happened with NKU?
Oh, with Riverview?
Yeah.
Oh, Riverview, so our student academy actually serves all of the 7th graders at Riverview, and all of the teachers that actually teach the 7th grade are in our teacher program. And so one of the things we were asking them is how could they build a college-going culture? And they came up with the idea that they wanted to bring their entire cohort of 7th grade students out to NKU. So actually today, they brought their students out to NKU, the entire 7th grade, and just got a note from the woman who hosted them and said that she's never had a group of more polite, more prepared students who came to learn about NKU. So that was really exciting.
So, and we also have Xavier we're working with so that we can start doing some summer programming for our students in the program. Because I did college counseling for 25 years, we're now begin to work with colleges that are a little bit further away. So a gentleman from Claremont McKenna who used to be over at Wabash called us the other day and said, how can I get in to find your students and start to get them to come to my school? In fact, I already approached one and said, what do you think of California? And the student said, really? I said, really. And then Rutgers has a marvelous program. Courtney McCunough runs a program up there. And this is what we're bringing to the universities to see if they will work with us so that in the summertime, the students can continue some kind of an educational process. And Courtney has one very well worked out. So we're still actively involved in doing that. Just to give you an idea, because this always comes up to us, this is fully loaded, and I want to make sure we say that. Or rather high. The mentoring program, that's really the program, the student program. And then we're paying our first pilot group of teachers $1,000 to come, and they did a 10-hour seminar on this already, and then they're meeting with us every 2 weeks to come and learn more about college knowledge and about social and emotional learning so that it's consistent with what the parents are hearing, so that when a parent comes into a conference and starts alluding to this, our teachers are on board as well. Did we do it in a short enough?
You did very well. Appreciate it. I know
You gave us a real limit on this.
you did very well and covered so many good topics. Questions, comments? I know we have some. Mr. Coons?
Yeah, just a comment. Thank you guys so much. I think it's awesome that you're research-based and also you have a strong foundation in social emotional learning as a mental health counselor and educator. Those are things that are very close to my heart. And I was waiting to hear about how you engage teachers, and you saved that till the end, which I think is fantastic because we have to let them understand mindfulness and how social emotional learning applies to people's lives. It's not something that most teachers learned about in college when they became teachers. So thank you for being so forward with your thinking and with what you do. And I just want to say thank you. No question from me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Yeah, thank you. We did have the chance to speak, so I know I've asked you lots of questions previously, but I do have a question around the data here states about raising college attendance rates. Is there any data around college completion rates? Because we know we often send lots of kids to college who are from low-income backgrounds who don't graduate from college. So I'm wondering if there's any research around how these programs are helping kids stay and complete college.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And we're actually working with Laura Mitchell on that right now. There's a gentleman, Ryan Padgett, over at NKU, who is a national researcher. And so we are working with him on establishing 7 to 10 what we call key markers. For example, the AP. But there are other markers like that. And so we're working with Laura on establishing what those markers are. So because we're trying to drive this from college graduation backwards.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what we'll be doing. And even exposing the teachers and principals and everyone to that kind of information. It's a very informed basis. So yes, we are working actively on that.
Great. Thank
in
you.
our spare time.
Mr. Manera?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I want to acknowledge that, yeah, majority of our students are definitely in poverty, and that brings on a lot of challenges. But we do have a non-English speaking becomes very difficult. Not only do you have the language barrier, but you also have the culture and, you know, the whole component of, I never thought my kid would even go to college. So is this a customizable, or are you thinking about ways of bringing this to other languages, or?
So the answer is yes, and we have 15 parents at Holy Family that are doing it in Spanish. Hopefully when we go to Roberts, we'll have more of those. And so yes, any language, this is used, I think, and Mary, maybe you remember the number, St. Paul had like how many languages?
They had 50 or 60 languages.
So this is definitely, and this is really not, the other thing I really want to address is this is not socioeconomically based. This is information that is just as valuable regardless where we go. So for example, in one of the Catholic schools, we're going to be going into a Catholic school that is not a poverty school. This is just good information for parents and teachers to have.
Thank you.
I would really like to commend you on the fantastic work that you are doing. This is very relevant for me as I have a junior student preparing for college tests and all kinds of other fun things. I wonder what are your most challenging barriers to getting students to participate?
Okay, so to this point, we have gone into full classes.
Okay,
we have
full
never,
classes.
and we do it during the school day. We have never asked, we
Okay.
have never chosen students to be in this program. Our theory is it can help everyone.
Okay.
So to this point, we've gone in and done the entire class.
That's great. That clears that up for me. I heard you mention Xavier University and potential summer initiatives, and I just wonder how you plan to recruit those students and to keep them engaged.
One of our one of our child deserves this information. We have had several partners who have walked away from us.
Really?
And that's their choice. I mean,
right.
you know, and they are there to serve a different group than we're there to serve. So it's just a choice. But yes, we've had that.
Very well, very well. Well, thank you again, and keep up the good work. And it is information that every child needs. It does not deviate based on socioeconomic status or race or color or anything like that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Vice President Nelms?
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation and the T-shirt. The only green that's better than this is money, but thank you for that. I wanted to say thanks for clearing something up, because for the longest I thought you two were sisters. So thanks for clearing that up. But
You're after
that
my
might give you
heart.
another T-shirt. Though. But I wanted to
That
say
means
your
another-
octopus example was a good philosophical example of how our systems, when I was a student in school, all our systems were saying the same thing. Home, school, church, community, adults. We don't have that anymore. And so it's a conflict, so it breeds a lot of confusion among the children as to what they should be doing and what they should be following. In my home, college was never talked about, but I was expected to act right and at least dream. So I wanted to ask you a question. I thought when you talked about the Parent Academy that you was really alluding to Parent Institute, which is in Boston and Philadelphia. Have you checked those out?
No. Have you?
Okay, well, that's another
We looked into
conversation.
them some.
But my
Wait a
question,
minute, clarification.
oh, you have?
Our researcher has.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a different, the one I've seen in Boston, it looked like it was weekend, like one long weekend, and we actually build it more on building relationships and getting parents used to coming into the school and really have time to look at their students' test scores. So it's a little bit of a different model, but it's also a good model.
I attended that when I was a council for Great City Schools, and I found it to be very enriching. But here's my question. Are there any other contributing factors other than poverty that keeps our students from engaging in post-education, and are there any other viable options that you promote? Because we have a conversation all the time about there's some kids that just don't desire to go to college. So do you talk about maybe the military as an option? Do you talk about vocational opportunity in other sectors as an option, or are you just strictly focused on post-secondary?
We really are on,
What? Oh, yeah.
actually, we really are on college as an option.
Okay.
okay? It doesn't say college you have to attend, but that you are ready to go if that's an option for you, and that you're ready for your option. And in today's world, so many students might elect not to go directly to college, but when they get into a job, they may need to go back and take courses. The other thing is, and this is one of my pet peeves, so I'm going to say it out loud, is I think sometimes when we negate the preparation for college, we also negate testing. And these are the policemen, the firemen, everyone has to be prepared. And so what we're doing is a preparation for life. Yes. So, and when we do the teacher academy, we hit this very hard. We never want to hear another teacher negate testing because it's a way of life for success for many people in all different fields.
Thank you.
That's a good point. Good point. I'm impressed by the number of folks that you have per school and over time. What's the process that you use or the method that you use besides, being able to provide childcare and transportation? How do you get those kind of numbers at each of the schools? Because I think they're impressive numbers for parents that are attending.
Okay, the hardest one we will do is what we've just done. That's where we're really pushing uphill the hardest, because we are literally calling every single parent. We're standing outside that school and handing out flyers. We are going to ice cream socials. We are
in the newsletters.
I mean, principals are sending out memos for us. So we're doing all of that. The next phase is where, when you're in the same school, people that have gone through the program make those phone calls. And then when they make it and they speak from personal experience, hopefully it's going to be a little bit easier. So, but it's nice, but it's a lot of work. I can't tell you how many ice cream socials and back to school nights and that we've attended to get the word out there. Yeah.
Great.
I think to that point, I think that's absolutely phenomenal, because you have to go where the people are. And so just by virtue of the fact that you are almost on a campaign to get folks to come, to get the good information that you have. And I think I know exactly what that takes. So I can't say enough about not being standoffish or for whatever reason not wanting to go into the community where the parents and the children live.
We've been to more activities than you.
I love that.
And we've got a team of people that are out there with us.
That's right. I figured that. I didn't think it was just you with your green shirts on, but yeah. So that's phenomenal, and I really appreciate that.
We are where they are. They don't have to come to us.
That's right.
How big is your team?
Actually, we have one more person who's full-time, who runs the parent program for us. She's there right now with all the facilitators, because they meet every Monday night to make sure we're on target with their lessons. Because the facilitators are community people as well as teachers, and we combine them so that we have an expert from education and a community person. So she's our third person and a secretary. We have a part-time person who goes around and visits all the schools for the teacher program to make sure we're on target and answers their questions. We have right now 42 people who are facilitators in the facilitator program that are part-time who just do that. We have 4 people who are in
the teacher program.
Yeah, the teacher,
Well, sorry.
2 of you.
Yeah.
In the teacher program. Yes, we are authorized to hire, but we are very picky, because if they're not passionate, we're not another job. They got to live, breathe, and die this stuff with us. And they may die.
Awesome.
I would just be curious too about the how you in your parent programs, keep things culturally relevant. I mean, maybe not so scholarly all the time, but ways to reach our parents who perhaps have challenges with literacy and lots of other issues.
Absolutely. And that's why we have the person who is from the community. So last summer, I spent the entire summer going from Wendy's to you name it, with people who are in the community who have stories like they have, who look like them, who can relate to them in there. And so when there's 15 of them, they can do that. We also, we made a mistake, I'll tell you right now. We separated husbands and wives when we said, if you want to stay together, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So we let two separate. Turns out the husband couldn't read, and so he didn't come back.
Right.
And so now we make sure that everyone, we have a little thing we do in the beginning, an exercise, so we see who reads, so that we know that.
And I would say also, one of the main reasons why we think PK is so effective is it's a facilitation instead of teaching.
Yeah.
And so because it's a facilitation, it draws on all of the knowledge that's in the
Their
room.
issues,
And so
yeah.
it affirms what people know in the room, their experience, and even though the facilitator knows where they want it to go, it's still about empowering the parents, knowing that they have so much valuable knowledge that we want to build on, so.
It keeps getting better and better. Thank you again.
And you'll see in there, if any of you want to stop by any of the events, we have all the events, and we have additional information in your packets.
Sure.
But we wanted to respect your time.
Yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, Mrs. Bates, would you please present the retirements?
Yes, we have one retirement in the superintendent's recommendations. Pamela Williams, one of our custodians, will be retiring in January. So we congratulate her and thank her for her service.
Thank you. Mr. Nelms, would you please present kudos? And I think we have these kudos spread.
Yeah, I think we have about
Throughout.
4, but I'll lead off on this one. Wanted to kudos to Rochelle Adams, and Miss Adams is the girls volleyball coach for the Woodward Career Technical High School. Miss Adams, as most of you may or may not know, is also a courageous young lady, as she was diagnosed with breast cancer on August the 9th, 2014, 1 week before the season officially opened. That diagnosis did not stop her from her commitment and responsibility to the Woodward volleyball players. She coached nearly the entire season with the junior varsity and varsity squads. Miss Adams had a double mastectomy on September 29th of 2014 and other treatments along the way. And when the season ended in early October of this year, she was named the Cincinnati Metro Athletic Conference Coach of the Year. Hughes had won the Cincinnati Metro Athletic Coaching Conference or Conference Coach of the Year, which automatically made Hughes Coach Nathan Lane the Coach of the Year, but Mr. Lane declined the honor to give to Miss Adams. So I just want to say kudos to both Miss Adams and Coach Lane for their courage, perseverance, and stick-to-itiveness, and her commitment.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Well deserved. Mr. Manera, do you have a?
I do. I was at Withrow today, and they had as a guest performance the Dance Theater of Harlem. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time that they have done a General Assembly for all grades since 12 years ago. So the expectation from many outside of the school was that the students were not going to behave. But let me tell you, our students are amazing. And whoever thinks that our students can't behave in such a professional environment, I was just impressed. They were engaged, they were professional. They respected just the performance and its completeness, and the leadership in the school did not have to call out anybody for any rude behavior or, speaking out of term, or it was like being at the Arnoff. So kudos to the students and the staff at Withrow High School for just doing an amazing performance at the performance of the Dance Theater of Harlem.
Thank you, Mr. Manera, and I think, Mr. Coons, you have kudo tonight.
Yes, kudos to Chase Elementary School of Northside for being named a High Progress School of Honor by the Ohio Department of Education. The honor was based on the school's 2013-2014 Ohio School Report Card data that showed consistent progress in raising student reading and math performance. The honor program looks at schools that have a high percentage of students from economically disadvantaged homes, tracks the performance of students in that area for the 5 most recent years, and spotlights schools that have shown sustained progress in student performance by all students over the 5-year time period. So kudos to Chase.
Thank you. Any other kudos?
I have kudos.
Great.
The following students from the list of semifinalists in the 60th Annual National Merit approximately 16,000 other students across the country who are competing for 7,600 national merit scholarships worth about $33 million that would be awarded next spring. And I think, didn't Walnut Hills have the highest number in the area of national merit? That's why we're number one in
Well, there you
Ohio,
go.
isn't it? I mean, that's one of the reasons. To be considered for a Merit Scholarship Award, semifinalists must fulfill several requirements to advance to the finalist level of the competition. About 90% of the semifinalists are expected to attain finalist standing, and more than half of the finalists will win a National Merit Scholarship, earning the Merit Scholar title. And those who achieved this level of scholarship from Schroeder High School, Gabriel Iverson; from Walnut Hills High School, Alicia Aaron, Claire Bowman, Zoe Chang, Thomas Clifford, Mark Dovich, Jake Friedman, Kyle Gioli, Sophia Goodman, Olivia Grondin, Emma Madimer, Michaela Hyde, Benjamin Mansfield, Robert Perry, Joseph Robbie, Jeffrey Schweller, Amanda Sequeri, Joel Strom, Will DeCulve, Maxwell Weiskittle, and Daniel Eukilis. So congratulations to our scholars.
Thank you very much, and absolutely, congratulations. We're now at the part of our meeting where we usually have public speak, but we have no request to speak this.
You know why?
Well, we certainly hope that
Tomorrow is Election Day. Second item